Hello, this is Dr. Daniel Van Ingen with Parenting Doctors Live. I'm with Dr. Sarah Van Ingen, and we are excited to join you as Dr. Andrew Doan points out, expert and author of Hooked on Games. We are all in recovery, and one of the things that we want to focus in on as we recover is staying on top of our game in parenting. And so here we are the parenting doctors, and I am so excited to introduce Dr. Sarah Van Ingen, the love of my life. And Dr. Sarah is a professor at the University of South Florida. She is an author and an international speaker. And Sarah, I'm so excited to have you join us tonight. And we are ready to really get into it and talk about any parenting issues. So, Sarah, welcome.
Great, thank you. It's really nice to be here. I know you've done these for a while, so I'm really happy to join.
So I thought we could get started by really just kind of seeing or asking some questions to Sarah on some of the questions that have been sent in. And if you're listening live on Facebook, just send your questions in, and we're going to get them done in tonight's show. But one parent wrote, Sarah, I thought we'd start out finding out what Sarah, some of the input that she can give us. One parent wrote, how do you help a child feel included in a large and busy family? So what do you think about that, Sarah?
That's a really good question. First of all, I really appreciate them asking the question, because I think one of the things that question says is that the parent is thinking about each child's in a busy. Can I just ask you a technical question? Are we okay there?
Yes, it's fine.
We're live?
Yep.
Okay. So I think it's wonderful that the parent is thinking about that, and I think one of the things we strive to do as parents is to think about each child individually. And as there are more children, I think it even becomes more important to think about the needs of each one as individuals. The go-to things. I think about thinking of something you can do daily, weekly, and then monthly, and perhaps even yearly with each child. And so, daily, what moments of closeness can you get with each child each day? And these don't have to take a long time. It can be just like just a moment where you stop and you hold that little child's face or hands in your arms and you just say, I love you. But it's a moment where you stop everything and you just look. Mm-hmm. You're really present, right? And mm-hmm. I think we've talked in the past about maybe doing like 2 of those moments, trying to have 2 of those moments a day.
Yeah.
And they don't really take a lot of time, but they take intentionality.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that. And then weekly, is there some activity that you can do with that child every week? Could be in the home, could be going to a park, doing a walk, but something that you and that child, and if it's a busy family, maybe this is just a 20-minute activity. Maybe it's coloring together, maybe it's going for a quick walk on the block, maybe it's even time you would spend in the car driving to an activity. But the point is that you've thought about this, and you have a time each week that mm-hmm. you're devoting to this child's, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. And then you think about those bigger things. So a date with mom or a date with dad. And that might be monthly to maybe even like twice a year, mm-hmm. right? Depending on how many kids you have.
Yeah.
But I think kids need that special going out to do something, and leaving the home and being gone for an extended period of time. And in a large family, maybe it's once a year, but mm-hmm. it makes a big difference.
I really believe in double ECED.
Whoa.
Double ECED. So every child, eye contact every day. And you may have 9 children, you may have 12 children, or 3. Every child, eye contact every day. And it can be as simple as looking straight into their eyes and reminding them how special they are, how wonderful they are, how much you love them, how proud of you are, how proud of them you are for who they are, for who they are. And that's one of the things that we've been talking about is we want to be proud of our children for who they are, not just what they do. Right? We've talked about tiger moms really being proud of achievements. Right? We've talked about conditional love and some of the patterns that come up in conditional love, where we focus in on being proud of them following A's, right, on tests, or spelling, acing the spelling test and other things. But we want to be proud of who Jimmy is, who Billy is, who Lisa is. But eye contact, every child, eye contact every day. A nice little thing you can put on your refrigerator.
Yeah, I like that.
Nice.
I can remember.
So let me throw Sarah another question for Sarah. Another question for Sarah is how do you? And Sarah's a lifetime educator. Sarah's taught at a university in Beijing, China. She's taught in inner city schools, private schools, colleges. She's worked with children of all ages, and you just recently had a tour in Brazil where you spoke with students and professors at a university. Do you want to talk about that for a second?
Oh, it was quite a joy. I really enjoyed it. The Brazilian teachers were amazing. They work in pretty tough conditions, as do many of our teachers here in the U.S. And I was just inspired by their dedication, their love for their students, for the professors who prepare teachers, how hard they were working. And I just had a lot of fun collaborating. So, you know me, you know that sort of makes my heart happy.
So that's just a little bit about Sarah's background. So that leads into this question that a parent wrote in with Sarah's education background. How do you speak up for yourself as a child without being a tattletale in school? Mm-hmm. What do you think about that? A mom wrote that in.
Mm-hmm. So I think, what we really believe in just talking a lot with our children about these types of things. And so my first thought is there's not one easy answer to this. Mm-hmm. But, speaking up for yourself has to do with advocating for yourself mm-hmm. and helping to express what you need. Mm-hmm. Tattletaling is, that has more the connotation of complaining about someone else's behavior. Now, sometimes it is appropriate to talk to an adult about another child's behavior. And so I think we really want to have discussions with our kids about when is it appropriate to talk about someone else's behavior. Mm-hmm. And, those are times when someone's safety is at risk, when there's cruelty, anything that gets close to bullying. There are definitely many, many reasons where we would want our children to talk to parents about the behavior of their children. Mm-hmm. But when we think of the negative connotation of tattletaling, that's just focusing on someone else's maybe minorly annoying behavior. Mm-hmm. And instead of, we want our children to learn how to ignore some of that minor irritation, but focus on what they need. Right? Focus on advocating for what they need, and also just focusing on making, I know it sounds cliche, but making the world a better place, making their environment a better, making that situation mm-hmm. a better situation. And so those are some of my thoughts. What do you think about that?
Well, I think you are right on. I have nothing else to add to that. Please send in your questions. And, as we're talking, we're just starting out, and we're passionate about our own parenting. And we also are, we want to be upfront. We don't have all the answers. And we want to come at this with humility. And we want to, we have a lot of shortcomings. And as parents, we make a lot of mistakes. Mm-hmm. But it's the joy of parenting. I mean, parenting is just wonderful. It's if you think about it, I know that there's a lot of people watching who really care about making a difference and bringing change to this world. And Sarah, don't you think that the biggest difference we'll make in this world, regardless of your profession, is with our children?
Yeah, absolutely. It's those relationships. And, what children need above all else is they need that love. They need that connection. They need that bond. Um, and regardless of what their behavior is, sometimes they are not showing it.
Yeah.
They're not showing that they want that love,
Yeah.
but they always need it. And I agree with you that the biggest difference we'll ever make is the relationships we have, and our kids are so important. And it's a really fleeting stage in our lives. You're in the middle of it and it seems long, but it goes quickly.
They grow up fast, don't
they? They do.
At the heart of things is love. And I had mentioned in a previous Parenting Doctors Live episode about how it really comes down to love. And when it comes to our parenting, a good idea that I like to show or talk about is how there's nothing a child can do to increase our love for them. And there's nothing a child can do to decrease our love for them. So not valedictorian, not a college scholarship, not a hat trick in soccer, right? That can increase our love for them. And there's nothing that can decrease our love for them. Not a teen pregnancy, not a dropout, not an addiction.
Right.
And so you think about the best or the worst. Our love for them is unconditional. And so we've talked traditionally, there's permissive parenting, authoritarian parenting, authoritative parenting. Recently, there's helicopter parenting. There's attachment parenting by William Sears and Sears. There's snowplow parenting. But my biggest concern is the conditional love parenting. And so we're going to talk about love. We're also going to talk about specific skills and how we can help parents grapple with some of the complex issues. So we're going to talk about and emphasize unconditional love is our focus in trying to move away from conditional love parenting. But we also want to help parents out there grapple with tough questions. So please send your questions in. And we had one mom, Sarah, and I want to throw this at you as we bring you on board here. And you have such great perspective on things. A parent asked about the importance of sleep, routines, and order. And so, how important is sleep? Now, I'm seeing, Sarah, and I'm seeing parents in my psychology practice. They're still having children sleep with mom, 7, 8-year-olds. Certainly, there's differences in cultural backgrounds, but what people are coming to me is, how do I change this behavior in my kids? So there's that factor. Then there's the factor of parents not knowing what to do when the child says, I'm not tired, and they keep coming out of their bed. So there's all kinds of these kinds of issues, and then there's the kid who delays and drags things on, and it lasts an hour and a half.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if you could speak to some of these issues. And
yeah, I mean, it's really funny because it's like you think it's such a small thing, like going to bed. But most of us parents know it's not a small thing, and it can definitely stretch on and be really challenging.
Yeah.
And I think it can be challenging for different children in different ways. And you can have a child who's having no problem with bedtime, and then all of a sudden has problems with bedtime.
Yeah.
So, I think one of our principles has been we work on one small behavior at a time. And there is some psychological research behind that.
Yep.
And also you tie one new behavior to a previously acquired behavior, right? So I think one of the things parents have to do is just start breaking down this bedtime routine and addressing one small thing at a time.
Yep.
Now, I think it's important for the parents to consider, are there sort of bigger underlying issues like fear? So we have some kids who are afraid of the dark. Or, loneliness. Are there other issues going on for the child? If there are, then we got to address those first. If there's not big issues, then there's habits, and habits are ingrained. And we as adults have lots of ingrained habits. And, yeah, like everyone has some resistance to change, but they can change.
Mm-hmm.
So even a child who's throwing temper tantrums and won't go to bed up to midnight, it can change, right?
Yep.
So we're gonna take some small steps to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing Dan and I do is we pick, like I said, maybe just a couple behaviors around the bedtime routine. We make that our goal, and then we're gonna sort of somehow reinforce that for the child. So I put these 3 behaviors, like we're gonna get dressed in 5 minutes. Where you, if as long as you're dressed in your pajamas in 5 minutes, I'm gonna read you a bedtime story. After the bedtime story, you're gonna whatever hop in bed right away or stay in bed till the next morning, whatever it is. And then those are things we give stars for the next morning.
Yeah.
And reinforce. So I don't know, some ideas. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, let me just add to that the importance of rituals. You know, we hear so much in the culture of how rituals are a negative thing. I'm not compulsive. I want to move away from rituals, but rituals are key in so many areas for behavioral intervention of psychological problems. So, for example, when someone's child is being treated not just with psychostimulants, but with cognitive behavioral therapy for ADHD, essentially what the therapist or counselor is going to do is help a child develop rituals. So they set up their desk, and if they come up with a 7-step, put the pencil here, do this here, this actually increases concentration, establishing a ritual. With performance anxiety, with psychological blocking, performance anxiety, whether it's a test anxiety, rituals help with that. With performance anxiety associated to sports, establishing a new ritual. So, and of course, common sense, lots of parents know the value of rituals for bedtime. So the bedtime routine and establishing a ritual. And kids love the ritual. And Sarah, as you know, if we shortchange the reading the story, it throws them off a little bit. But having a story, saying the blessings, whether it's a tubby, and you start at a set period of time, you have an average, a standard, an expectation of how much time things will take, and the reward, the reinforcer is based on that time frame and the ritual, adhering to that ritual. It's so helpful.
Okay, yep. So really the take-home message there is identify a routine.
Yep.
And stick to the routine. And you're going to have to do it for, I think they say at least 2 weeks, really, until everyone starts to sort of get used to the routine.
Yep.
So, yeah, I think that would help get this person on the right track as far as bedtimes.
What would you say to the moms out there, Sarah, who have trouble? And so there's complex situations like a spouse passed away. And so child is sleeping with mom for the first several months. So let's put those traumas to the side. And just in those situations where we would say it's more behavioral, and a child wants to sleep with the parents or parent, and a parent reinforces that. And so not just 1, 2, 3-year-old where they're trying to reinforce and strengthen attachment, but more, what would you say to the moms out there, or the dads, but the mom's a 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old, and the mom wants the behavior to change, but not sure what to do.
So I think one thing is being clear about why you want the behavior to change, and often it's because it's interrupting sleep. So either when you have an older child who's coming into a parent's bed in the middle of the night, oftentimes it's just taking away from either the parent's sleep or the child's sleep. So I think you sit and you have a little family meeting, like not at night, and not right before bed either, but at some in the morning, early afternoon, and you sit down and talk about it. And I think first the parents clear for themselves, like why they want the behavior to change, and then at a neutral time, talking to the child, and I think actually explaining to the child, because we're talking about an older child, so I think we want to explain, and even though it's an older child, I still think some reinforcement is helpful there.
Mm-hmm.
So, when the child doesn't come in, and there's at least praise, and if not, even something special that you could do with the child, as but
Is there any encouragement you could give to moms who maybe maybe feel a little overwhelmed? And I know one of the things that you said is let's break the behaviors down one step at a time, right?
Yeah.
When it comes to certain things,
Yeah.
like say bedtime. But in dads too, who may feel overwhelmed by a behavior that they don't feel like can change.
Yeah, well, I think, yes, have hope. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint.
Yeah.
And so we need to just keep our eyes on the long term.
Mm-hmm.
And just because it doesn't go well 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, even a couple weeks, hang in there.
Mm-hmm.
So much about parenting is just perseverance.
Mm-hmm.
And I think surrounding yourself with other friends, adult friends who can encourage is really important.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, if what happens off sometimes with us parents is sometimes we're not consistent.
Mm-hmm.
And so like the mom may say, well, you cannot come into the bed tonight, and if you come into the bed, I'm going to ask you to leave, and I'm going to walk you back to your bedroom. And then the child comes in, and then there's, a little teary-eyed or something. And then the mom just sort of says, oh, okay, well, just tonight, but tomorrow, tomorrow we're not doing it. And that can actually be sort of pretty tough on the change, that you're trying to achieve. And so I think that's why I think beforehand, be clear on what you want, why you want it. And that can help you sort of stick to the plan when you're exhausted and can't quite think as clearly as you'd like. And the last thing I want to say is, that time in the bed, it's like a snuggle time, right? And so if either the mom or the child is feeling like more need for snuggle or, affection, attachment, so then make sure that gets boosted during the day.
Mm-hmm.
Boost it. Have times where you snuggle on the couch together, read a book, give a big hug. So I think that recognize maybe if there's sort of underlying reasons why it's hard to follow through, and then address those. Those are important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think we probably can't say it enough, the importance of self-care as parents.
Yeah.
And that's critical. That quiet time, meditation time, prayer time. And what I often refer to with stress management is the big three: exercise, nutrition, and the critical component of sleep, getting enough sleep. Sarah, let me ask you this question. This is a very specific question, and I'd love to get your expertise on this. A mom, Lisa, wrote in, a close friend of her 9-year-old son, Billy, likes to play with Billy's brother, who's 7 years old, when the 9-year-old's not available.
Yes.
Okay? So, and this raises tension and distress when the 9-year-old Billy comes home to find the friend with the 7-year-old brother. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, I think it's actually talking to that 9-year-old. Not when the friend's around, but again, at sort of a neutral time. And one of the things is helping the 9-year-olds articulate what they're feeling. Mm-hmm. So if the 9-year-old is upset, maybe it's not uncommon for the 9-year-old to throw something or yell at the brother or slam the door or something like this. So can we get the 9-year-old to say what it is, and so what we do is we coach our children, like,
right.
How are you, how are you feeling? The child doesn't know what to say.
Yep.
So you say, well, are you angry?
Yes.
You can say, I feel angry. Do you feel lonely?
Yes.
Do you feel rejected, right? Left out? And do you really try to help the 9-year-old name what it is?
That's right, and that's so important. Let me jump in, Sarah. How many of us grew up in a family where emotions were allowed, where we learned how to express our emotions and put names to our emotions? Not many of us.
Right.
But generations are changing. And one of the things that's so important is all emotions are allowed. A lot of families saw the movie Inside Out. That was a great movie. If you haven't seen it, show it to your kids. It talks about all the emotions working together. Um, and anger is allowed, and disagreement is allowed. How many of us sat around a dinner table growing up and heard this from a parent? Disagreement is allowed. You are allowed to disagree. It is okay to disagree here. Express your emotion. Anger is allowed. Um, a lot of times, sadness wasn't allowed in a lot of families. But expressing emotion and allowing that emotion, and it's okay to feel and being honest with your expression is really important. Don't you think, Sarah?
Mm-hmm. I do, yeah. So I think trying to get the 9-year-old to articulate what is it that they felt when they came home.
Yeah.
And, you know, my guess is there's a fear underneath there. My guess is a fear of losing the friend. And so then we directly talk about that.
Yeah.
And depending on the age of the children, 9 is a little bit young. It might be appropriate to tell the other friend that, to tell the other 9-year-old friend. When I see you playing with my brother, I just feel afraid that I'm going to lose our friendship. Might be better for like a 10 or 11-year-old, but I think 9's on the edge of being able to do that. And so then he can hear the friend say, hey, listen, man, I'm waiting for you. It's sort of fun to play with your brother, but I'm still waiting for you, right?
Yeah.
And so I think often our emotions let us know that there's a need, right?
Yeah.
So if we're feeling angry, if we're feeling sad, if we're feeling lonely, fearful, there's a need underneath there. I think the more we can help as parents, our children figure out what was that need, and then the more the child can express it, the more they can get those needs addressed, and that's really healthy living.
Yeah, that's good. Right. And we're going to come back to, time and time again, the value of the family meeting. And sometimes when you are driving around, soccer moms, and you are running to baseball or hockey or whatever it is, and the parents are going to kids' different teams, and you have school events and all kinds of situations. Sometimes you're passing each other, and the family meeting is important. It's critical. And we'll talk a lot about how coming back and having that family meeting and discussing different issues and engaging in, it's okay to have conflict and maybe disagreeing, one person talk at a time. And the value of family dinners are so important. So we're going to talk about some of those kinds of things. I want to bring up, so we've talked a lot about children, young children, middle-aged children. Then there's tweens and teens. And if you haven't seen at our YouTube channel, recommendations on social media. So when we think about teens nowadays, things have changed, especially in the last 5 years. And when we think of teens, one of the things that those who work with families, like Sarah and I do, the thing that comes up is social media. So check out our video on recommendations for social media. But there's lots of things that are different that we need to think about. We're moving towards college, and there's increased responsibilities. And so getting jobs. And so this was brought up, and I've seen this in my own practice, helping teens get jobs. And so let me throw this question out, Sarah. How important is it for teenagers nowadays to get jobs? Is it as important as it was when we were growing up? I mean, my first job was digging tunnels. Then I worked at Dairy Queen, $3.50 an hour. Then my prime time jobs were at Wendy's. And I learned how to be a good team player. I learned how to serve for the first time. Not as a server, but to serve others, to think of something bigger than just myself. I learned how to be selfless.
Okay, so I
Yeah.
think, in general, jobs are great, but I think it's every teen's a unique case. So I think we've talked a lot in this country about like the overscheduling of our children.
Yep.
And we talk a lot about that with young children, but it does happen with our teens as well.
Yeah.
And one thing we know clearly is teens are not getting enough sleep. And unfortunately, some of that is with social media as well. It's really disrupting teen sleep.
The average teen is at 6 hours a night on weekdays.
Yeah. And it's really, there's the medical research is clear that has a very negative effect on teenagers, their health, and it can have long-term health effects. So I think as parents, we do need to be really like vigilant, maybe even a little bit aggressive with just protecting our children's sleep. And even though it seems like a 16-year-old, 17-year-old, they don't, maybe can feel like they don't need us, but actually they really do still need that kind of protection.
Yeah.
And at that point, it has to be a conversation. There's no way you can force a 17-year-old to sleep. But there are things that we can do with to help talk through a schedule with our teens. Even like having your teen do a trial of getting 8 hours, but even better if 9 or 10 hours.
American Academy of Pediatrics recommends 9 to 10 hours.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, but even teens will be so resistant. But if you just say, okay, listen, if you just do it, I just want you to do it for 1 week. If after 1 week, you really don't like it, we can re-talk about it. But, they're going to feel pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Because that's how you feel, pretty incredible when you get the sleep that you need. So, okay, I just wanted to say that about jobs because we do have some teens who are doing school, and then they have after-school clubs and sports, and then they're doing jobs on top of that, and then homework, and they're just not sleeping.
Right.
So I do think jobs need to have a place. And of course, you can't get away from economics. Like some teens really do have to work if they want to drive or if they want to have money for clothes or books or things like that.
So one of the things that we're seeing, and I've seen several teenagers in my practice over the last several years who want a job, they try to get a job, but anxiety is getting in the way. And so this is anxiety producing. And we are seeing teenagers who, because of avoidance, the avoidance has reinforced anxiety. We're seeing glossophobia, not wanting to speak, not wanting to give a speech in front of class. So they look for accommodations in order to avoid speaking in front of groups, speaking in front of classes. And nice teachers are providing accommodations so they don't have to speak. They can just speak in front of just the teacher, not in front of other students. So you have the anxiety of situations like that, and because of social media, they're delaying getting jobs. So there's a number of factors that are going into. Another major factor is being afraid of getting embarrassed when they go for the interview.
So let me just say this. If you're finding that your teen is struggling with interviewing, and sometimes that is directly saying, I'm afraid of doing it, but sometimes it's just refusing too. One thing is, please let's not take the stand of like what's wrong with you or why are you worried about this. It's simple, it's easy, it's Wendy's or whatever it is. In life, just a general rule is we're all doing our best. Right? And so that teen needs some practice. They need some opportunities to figure out what it is that is frightening them, what they have not done before. And I think that's something that we can do as parents then is really talk through, okay, well, what would you say to start out the interview, or role play, do a mock interview, and we can do that, but we could also get our friends, like sort of a third person, not the parent, but also somebody our teen knows, to like do some mock interviewing as well. So I think that the worst thing we could do is belittle the teen or sort of make light of the anxiety. But the best thing we could do is to give them some practice. Let them try it out. Let them figure out how to. Each one of us gets in situations where we don't know what to say. That happens to me all the time. Probably sitting here, I'm like, I don't know what to say. So, but we learn how to roll with that, right?
Right.
We learn
Yeah.
how to say fillers. That's a great question, right? We learn those things.
Yeah.
And so I think, but we learned them. It may seem like we always knew them, but we didn't. We learned them over time. And so
Yeah.
giving our teen a chance to practice those is important.
And I think our teenagers want honest and direct communication. They don't like sugarcoating, especially millennials and iGen teens. And I think they want principles can help. So one principle I like to remind them, and definitely I think expressing with love and compassion, not to minimize and to validate their feelings, is important. But one principle that can help is how avoidance reinforces anxiety, and so looking for those opportunities to practice talking, practice interviewing, and starting young, so that when they're 16 and 17, as anxiety starts to go up a little bit, they know that avoidance can only make it go up higher, or when they go, their self-efficacy can increase, their belief and their ability to do well in the interview can really come through.
Okay, so let me just say one thing about that.
Yeah.
That reminds me, so often we see with parents of younger children, you'll be in a social setting and an adult will say hi to the younger child, and the younger child won't say anything, and the parent will say, "Oh, Michael, he's just a shy kid."
Yep.
Right?
Thank you.
And for Dean and I, we never do that. And one of the things is we, from a young age, expect that our children can look someone in the eye and greet them. We don't expect extended conversations, but we expect that they can greet them. And then as they get older, we do expect that we teach them how to play tennis. In other words, teach them how to ask a question, answer a question, back and forth. So, of course, we know that people do have different temperaments. And so for some children, it is maybe easier for them to be outgoing, or they just want to make eye contact and say hi. And other children, it's not as natural. Like, it's not something they want to do. But please, we would just encourage everyone out there, don't say it just because they're shy.
Right.
They may have more shyness, but that's something to talk about in private. It's not something to speak out over your child, and it's not a reason why the child wouldn't look someone in the eye and just respond to a greeting.
Right.
And so little stuff like that when they're younger can lead to the child having more practice and more support, so that when they're older they can engage in these much more intense experiences like interviews.
Yeah. So Sarah, the Johnson family, they're at a restaurant. Server comes up and says, what would you like? Let me start with you. And Billy doesn't say anything. He looks down, and the mom says, or the dad says, oh, he's just really shy. And then he wants pancakes and sausage. So this over-reliance on temperament, or this over-reliance on labeling our child's personality, like with shyness as a characteristic, fails to recognize that this is a skill to develop. And I think it's really important for parents to expect the child to make good eye contact, express what they want, learn how to talk. This is a skill. But when we just say, oh, he's just shy, it confirms to the child and reinforces the undesired behavior.
Yep. And so the flip side, we would say, for parents, don't say, oh, he's just shy. At the same time, we don't want to mock our children.
Right.
So it's not sarcastic, like, Billy, what's wrong with you? Why, what I mean? Like that's not okay either.
That's right.
The thing is, our children are going to have a wide range of responses. We may have taught them how to respond to a server or how to reply to a greeting, and they don't reply. So in that moment, we need to be patient. We can set up the expectation that they will respond. But we also really try not to add any embarrassment to that child. If the child just doesn't do the greeting or follow through, then in private. We're gonna have a conversation with the child. Hey, I noticed you didn't,
Yeah.
you didn't speak loud enough for the server to hear, and then sort of address it there. So don't make excuses, but also don't be sarcastic. As always in parenting, instead of finding that like that golden mean,
Yeah.
that middle path.
Yeah. Great comments there. Just a few additional thoughts. We want to, for teenagers looking for jobs, but having anxiety, really looking for those positives. If they went to an interview, and just really encouraging them. I think also we want to look for those ways to reinforce courage, and helping teens to really overcome their fears, because my favorite acronym, as you know, for fear is false evidence that appears real, and so we really want to help them to overcome their fears, to be unafraid of embarrassment, to be unafraid of taking risks, to be courageous, to be fearless. These are the kinds of things that we want for our teenagers, so they can really establish some goals, set some dreams, and look to make a difference and change the world.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and one of the things about interviewing is that it really sets you up for the possibility of rejection, because you know a lot of people are going to get rejected from those interviews, and that may be the first time your teen is facing such personal, intense rejection from an adult. So it may be worth, and that's anxiety producing, of course. So it may be worth talking through worst case scenario. What's the best case scenario? You get offered the job.
Yeah.
What's the worst case scenario?
Yeah.
They call you up and say, we found someone else. Could you handle that? How would you feel? I would feel horrible. Okay. Yep. Understandable. It's so disappointing. But because I think sometimes it can be this. Sometimes part of the overwhelm is just the nebulousness of it. But when you really think through, like, could I face not getting that job? It helps you say, yeah. I mean, I don't want that to happen, but I could handle it, and that there's some freedom in that.
Yeah, nice. I appreciate your thoughts on that. That's good. That's good. Well, we have gone 40 minutes in our first Connected Parenting Doctors Live. So it's been a great show. Do you have any final comments, Dr. Sarah Vanningen?
No, it was really fun to spend the evening with you. We hope this has been helpful. We would love to hear your comments, or if you have future questions, we'll weave them into another live session.
Please check us out at parentingdoctors.com, our website there, and we have a free ebook offering that's coming out called Flourish. It's very exciting. Do you want to say something about Flourish?
Sign up. See what it's all about. It's a great title, so check it out.
Yep. And we've got a new book coming out, You're Your Child's Best Psychologist, 7 Keys to Excellence in Parenting. Check us out on YouTube and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're going to have a number. We've got a great video on there right now on recommendations for social media, which is critical for parents of tweens and teens right now. Thanks so much for joining us tonight, and we look forward to being with you at our next Parenting Doctors Live show. All right, have a great night.